Alright, is everyone ready? Good to go? Thanks. Alright, so I would just like you guys to turn off your WhatsApp. Okay, I'm going to turn off mine. Okay, so for the next 2 hours, okay, let's stay focused and prepare your guidebook. Okay, we will be using this guidebook. Okay, so for the viewers out there, okay, if you don't have this guidebook, then you probably want to refer to the sharings later. Okay, so today we won't be having a quiz because we are running a little short on time. Okay, so I would just like to hop straight into today's lesson objective. Okay, so I would just like to have a quick show of hands for the first year students. Have you all learned income elasticity and cross elasticity in school already? Anyone? Not yet. Okay, so someone, yes. Boys? The other two boys? No, not yet. Okay, so I just want to make a mental note. Okay, this is one of the extension topic, okay, of what we have learned in demand and supply, especially demand. So this topic, okay, is exceptionally challenging. Okay, but on the flip side, if you follow through, okay, it's not that difficult. Okay, so there are two sides of the same coin. So I'll let you guys to uncover that yourself. So with that, okay, let's go through today's lesson objective. Okay, so we will be doing a quick recap on Egypt. Okay, I hope you guys still remember what is Egypt. Right, so I will be using acronyms, or rather not acronyms, short forms. YED stands for income elasticity of demand. Okay, we'll have the definition. Okay, I'll start to introduce the size and sign of YED. Okay, so today a lot, okay, will be focused on the size and signs. It's kind of related to what we have learned in price elasticity, kind of related. Okay, later on I'll emphasize on the formula and what you cannot get wrong or get confused with PED. YED and XED, they are very diagram centric. Okay, so I will show you how are we going to illustrate in the diagram the determinants of YED and XED. Okay, so unlike demand, there's Egypt. YED and XED, there's significantly lesser. Okay, so don't need to be too much of a concern. Point 6, okay, is an extension topic of what we have covered, okay, earlier on under our demand and supply and our price elasticity, total expenditure and total revenue approach. Yeah, so it's not difficult if you have followed me since the very start. Okay, and point 7, okay, is very important. It will be tested later. So especially for the first year students, okay, in your block test, in your upcoming June common test, whichever mid-year exams, okay, it's quite likely that the sample question that I'm going to show you or flash to you is a very testable question. So it's about firms' decision pricing or non-pricing decision. Okay, so I will show you in a short while. Okay, how can we use YED concepts to formulate non-pricing strategies to help firms to maximize revenue. Okay, after that, we'll be moving on to XED. Okay, I think Hwa Chong uses CED. All right, so these two, some of the schools use C, some of the schools use X. Whichever school, it doesn't really matter. It simply means cross elasticity. X means cross. Yeah, C is also cross. Okay, so we are going to go through the same approach, the size and sign of XED. The diagram illustration of XED, what are the determinants for cross elasticity, total expenditure, total revenue, pricing and non-pricing. Okay, maybe I change this. Okay, I just put it strategies. Okay, under XED there are two approaches. Okay, pricing and non-pricing. And lastly, we'll go through the exam purpose. Okay, so I will touch on I will emphasize a little bit more on item 7 and item 13 because that's what you need for the practice question later. Okay, and depending whether we have time or not, okay, I may or may not be able to draft an outline for all of you. Let's see how that goes, right? Okay? So, having said that, okay, I would like you guys to refer to your book on Egypt. Okay, so this will be page 4. So remember I've mentioned that which are the two most important alphabets. If you still remember, key this out. Which are the two most important alphabets? And for the viewers out there, if you are not sure what I'm referring to, please refer to the demand and supply content lesson that I've casted earlier on. Okay, good, Raphael. What about the rest? There are two exceptionally important alphabets. Okay, dy, one of the alphabet is not right. Okay, t is not right. Alright, so the two important alphabets are G and Y. So today we'll be looking at the extension of these two. Okay, so we go through the easier one, Y. Okay, so for income, we know that whenever there is a rise in household income, or in some cases, the question won't tell you household income. What will the question tell you? Okay, economic boom, economic recession, then you have to make deduction on household income. Higher purchasing power, okay, and higher demand for the good. So there's a key assumption here, okay, called normal goods. Okay, so later we'll exemplify this. And what happens when scenarios turn abnormal? Okay, we don't use the concept of abnormal, okay, but what do we use? For those who are familiar, if it is not normal goods, it has to be, starts with the word I. So remember?
Inferior.
Inferior good, thank you, inferior good. Okay, so later on we'll uncover that. Alright, so for interrelated goods, we are looking at complements and substitutes, joint in demand and competitive in demand. Okay, so we will be looking at, if you realize that what we are looking at in Egypt, G and Y, we are primarily concerned about the direction of your demand curve shifting. Okay, so the keyword here are very important. Please pen this down. Okay, in the first layer of demand, we are looking at the direction. When we move on to YED and XED, we are concerned not only with the direction, but also the magnitude of your demand curve shifting. Magnitude. Okay, how far is your demand curve going to shift? Okay, and in certain cases like income, okay, we realize that we are also going to be concerned about what happens when there's a rise in household income. Could it lead to a fall in demand? Okay, so we are going to question this assumption. So in a nutshell, we are concerned about the magnitude of your demand curve shifting for under these two conditions. And under income, we are going to question the assumption that when income rises, is your demand necessarily going to rise or it could fall? Is everyone clear? So this is the whole essence of what we are going to cover today. So with this, okay, let us quickly move on, okay, to the next agenda, definition and size of YED. Okay, I'd like you guys to refer to page 11. Oh, you all have the book, right? Have Okay, so I'm just going to quickly run through the definition and the formula of YED. Okay, so these two, okay, will be under scrutiny. So I just want you all to be mindful that we are going to differentiate from PED. Okay, a lot of students actually get YED and PED mixed up. Okay, you cannot afford, okay, to mix these two up. So PED, we are actually looking at the degree of responsiveness of quantity demanded of a good to changes in its own price. Okay, whereas for YED, we are looking at the responsiveness of quantity demanded to a good with respect to changes in consumer income. So this is non-price. Okay, so please bookmark this. It's a non-price. So a lot of students, sometimes when they write, they don't know what they are writing. Okay, so YED is primarily non-price factor. And likewise, if it's a non-price factor, we are concerned about shifting your demand curve. PED, you are looking at the slope of your demand curve. Okay, is everyone clear? So the next thing that you want to be concerned about is some of the schools have differing definitions. Okay, so if you look at the book, it states quantity demanded. Okay, some of the schools states demand. Okay, both are accepted. Okay, you have to check your school notes. Okay, so to Mr. Teo, okay, the more precise illustration is actually looking at the equilibrium shift, or rather the magnitude of your demand curve shifting. Okay, because this is a shift, to me, demand is going to be more precise. Okay, but a lot of schools use quantity demanded. So the key difference is not that important. Why they use quantity demanded is because, okay, at the end of everything, we're looking at the equilibrium price and quantity. Okay, so the equilibrium quantity is actually plugged into here. Okay, it's not a big deal. Okay, I'm going to show you in a diagram in a short while how are we going to bridge the difference. So whenever you are expected to define, check with your school notes. If your school notes use demand, you use demand. If your school notes use quantity demanded, you use quantity demanded. Is everyone clear? Okay, any questions, please pen this down on the chat. And for the formula, okay, likewise, you have to differentiate between the two. So we are looking at responsiveness of your quantity demanded, or in some schools they use demand, extent of your demand curve shifting, with respect to changes in household income, ceteris paribus. Okay, so remember, okay, it's not price, okay, this is income. Okay, so this is one of the things that students often get wrong. Clear? Alright, so with this, okay, I'm going to move on to okay, size. Okay, I've gone through the definition and size and sign. Okay, so let's look at page 15. Okay, I'm going to derive all this step by step with you. Okay, so so probably you can refer to the book, and you can refer to what I'm going to do on my blank screen. Okay, and you can actually take some notes if you like. Okay, so your YED, okay, we are actually concerned about the percentage change in your demand or quantity demanded with respect to percentage change in your income, ceteris paribus. So I'm just going to derive, okay, what are the two broad categories before we start to split them up. Okay, so here, okay, these are the two broad categories that you want to be concerned about. YED less than 0 and YED more than 0. I'm going to explain what is this. So for instance, okay, when there is a 1% rise in household income, okay, and your demand goes in the same direction, would it be greater or smaller than 0? Regardless of the magnitude, okay, it could be 2%, it could be 0.5%, whatever. Now, my question is, okay, is it going to be greater or smaller than 0?
Greater than 0.
Greater than 0. Right? So you can see that with an increase in the household income, so long as your demand responds in the same direction, okay, two positives will give you greater than 0. Right? So, okay, this is what we call a normal good. So this is consistent with our finding in when we go through demand and supply. Okay, a rise in income will lead to an increase in demand of the good. Okay, assuming that it's a normal good. So normal good, it simply tells you that income, your demand of the good responds in the same direction as your income. So if you realize that when there is an increase in household income by 1%, but there is a fall in demand of the good, okay, maybe let's say whatever amount, 0.5%, 2%, okay, they go in the opposite direction. When one goes up, the other goes down. This is going to cause your YED to be negative. Okay, so this is what we call an inferior good. When income goes up, demand goes down, inferior good. So all of you have to be familiar with, okay, the signs. Okay, so we are going to move on to uncover deeper layers within the Y factor. So far, the green one was what we have covered earlier on under demand and supply. The orange one, okay, is questioning the assumption. Okay, whether the good or whether when there's a rise in household income, will demand necessarily go up. So what is an example of inferior good to you? For instance, when there's a rise in household income. What's an example? Okay. Public transport. Okay. Public transport is, later on I will group it better. There's a better category. But normally, if you look at your school notes, okay, the example that they widely use for inferior good will be something like cup noodles, right? Okay, when there's a growth in income level, you probably eat lesser of cup noodles. Okay, probably eat something else. Okay, like what, fast food or McDonald's or steak, whatever. Okay, so you just have to be concerned, okay, that there are certain goods that go in the opposite direction with a rise in income. So far, is everyone clear? Now I'm going to uncover the third layer. Okay, I think my dog wants in, okay, but I just want to keep her out of reach first. I just want to focus and complete whatever that I said to complete today. So within the positive range, okay, there are two more. Okay, so we have 0 greater than 1 and YED 0 between 0 to 1 and YED greater than 1. So are you all following the range? This is simple mathematics, okay, because it's greater than 0, they are going to be broken down into two range. Between 0 to 1 and greater than 1. So what do we mean by that? So now let's uncover this relationship. Okay, the first pair, okay, I'm going to circle them up. For every increase in 1% of household income, okay, the demand of the good will increase by 0.5%. So what is this trying to tell you? First of all, okay, let's group them up. When household income increased by 1%, but your demand increased by 0.5%, is it going to be between 0 to 1 or YED is greater than 1? Key this in now in the chat. Between 0 to 1 or YED greater than 1? Come on, quickly key this in. Those who haven't key, okay, please use your keyboard. DY, Yuki. So we can see that with an increase in 1% of your household income, if your numerator responds lesser, then your size would be, okay, probably between 0 to 1, right? Always look at numerator and denominator relationship. This is simple mathematics, So, two names for this. Okay, the first one is what we call a necessity good. Okay, and if you want to illustrate, okay, why is it, or rather from the income elasticity of demand perspective, this is what we call income inelastic. Okay, so necessity goods means that, okay, it does not respond to income changes well. So there are certain categories of goods that don't necessarily respond well to income changes, but they're still normal good. They still go in the same direction. So just now, Jiaming brought up an example of public transport. Now, public transport, I would say, is better categorized under necessity good because when there's a rise in household income, you probably take more bus, right, or more train, but you don't necessarily consume a lot more. Another example that you see is rice, right? So you realize that rice, when there's an increase in household income, okay, would you consume significantly more rice? You wouldn't, right? Okay, so you will increase by a little, but not a lot. Okay, so this is what we call necessity or income elastic. Okay, likewise, the second pair of relationship, when there is an increase in income, and this leads to a more than proportional increase in your demand curve. You see that? Okay, so your YED value is likely to be greater than 1. Okay, this is the second relationship. Okay, so there are two names for this as well. We can consider this as luxury goods or income elastic. So a lot of students actually get this concept confused with PANT. Okay, PANT is your determinants for PED. Okay, especially the degree of necessity. Okay, for that factor, okay, we're looking at price. Okay, the effects of price on necessity and luxury good. Down here, we're not looking at price. So please do not get these two mixed up. All right? So it simply tells you that when there's an increase in income, you will consume more steak. You will consume more luxury goods like what iPhone. Right, you will consume more luxury goods like bubble tea. And likewise, when there is a fall in income, then you will consume lesser. Okay, fall in your demand, extent of fall in demand will be lesser. Okay, so I just want to make a disclaimer. Your sign do not necessarily go in one direction. When there's a fall in household income, then you have to observe what happens to the changes in your demand. right? So sometimes when there's a recession, okay, you realize that people are eating more cup noodles, right? That's what happens. This is what how inferior good comes into the picture. Fall in household income, a rise in demand for inferior goods. Okay? So this is how you make sense of page 13. Okay, all the signs here. So I have derived all of them for you. Okay, so this is how you want to revise. I'm going to move on to the diagram perspective. Okay, so this is not in the book. Okay, so if you'd like to jot down, this is the best time to jot. Alright, so you can join me in drawing. Okay, I'm just checking whether I'm showing the full screen. Okay, so now let's consider this scenario. Okay, when there's an increase in income. Remember, we have 3 categories of goods, right? Okay, between 0 to 1. Sorry, smaller than 0 and greater than 0. And when it's greater than 0, we have necessity and luxury goods. So we want to uncover its effects on the demand curve. Okay, so in standard Egypt or standard demand framework, okay, we understand that the increase in income will lead to an increase in demand. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly illustrate what are the differing impacts on these 3 categories of goods. Okay, let's start with the easiest. Okay, so when there's an increase in income, when the good is an inferior good, what happens to the demand curve? Inferior good. Let's look at inferior good. What happens to the demand curve?
The demand curve shifts to the left.
Okay, shifts to the left. Shift to the left. So this is demand inferior. Are you all following me? So the magnitude of shifting to the left doesn't really matter. Okay, it is the direction of shifting to the left. Now, okay, let's uncover normal goods. Okay, under normal goods, we have, I'm going to split into colors. Okay, we have a necessity, and I'm running out of colors. Luxury, yeah, luxury. Okay, so earlier on we uncovered that the increase in income will lead to a fall in demand. Okay, and for normal goods, an increase in income will lead to an increase in demand. Right? But how much is your demand curve going to increase? Okay, so definitely this will increase. But by how much? Okay, I'm so sorry, my head is blocking, right? That's the hazard of myself being in the picture. Demand increasing. So I'm going to show you. Okay, so for these two, demand will go up, but they're going to go up in different magnitude. So remember, when there's a rise in income, okay, you don't necessarily consume a lot more rice. Agreed? So your demand curve is going to shift a little bit more to the right. Okay, I'll call it demand necessity. Okay, I call this P2 and Q2. Okay, I just want you all to focus on the colors. Okay, inferior is a fall. Okay, whereas necessity is a slight rise. If you have any questions for me, please raise it up. And for luxury, now we know that demand for luxury goods will go up with every rise in household income. So my question is this. Okay, is it going to be on the right hand side of necessity or the left hand side of necessity? If we were to illustrate on the diagram.
Right hand side.
Right hand side. Okay, this is your demand for luxury goods. So you can see that. I want you all to focus. Okay, look at the screen. Don't look anywhere else. Size of the arrow. Okay, do you see the size of the arrow? Oh, this is the entire essence of YED. Okay, magnitude, and for inferior good, okay, there is a inverse relationship. When they increase in income, fall in demand for inferior good. So far, so good. Okay? Simple enough? Now, okay, determinants of YED, I'll quickly run through. They are briefly stated in item 15, or rather page 15. So for level of income, okay, is one of the determinant of your YED. So what do I mean by that? Okay, I'm sure you guys have very rich friends, right? Right? So for some of your very rich friends, okay, then like what Jia Ming has mentioned, public transport, okay, to a very, very rich person would be what? Inferior good, right? They probably have chauffeurs to chauffeur them around. Make sense? So, okay, the perception of the good or the YED value of a good depends on the starting income of individuals. Okay, for normal SES people like us, okay, we probably deem public transport as a necessity good. Okay, maybe Grab, okay, or private hires as a luxury good. Okay, but it does not necessarily be the same for super high income earners. Right? Grab to them may be a necessity. I need to be here, I need to be there. Okay, they're not going to be very sensitive they're not going to be sensitive to any income changes. All right, so this is an example of how you want to play around with level of income. We want to look at the starting income of the household, right? And okay, for different income groups, okay, their perception of the nature of the good is going to be different. Okay, likewise, nature of the good. Okay, there are certain goods that have a high degree of necessity. Okay, like I've mentioned, rice and all this. Okay, they are, since they are staple food, okay, they are going to take the value of between 0 to 1, regardless of whether any income changes. Okay, and okay, you're going to consume that amount. Okay, so your nature of your good, okay, is also going to affect your value of your YED. So the stronger necessity it is, okay, the more income inelastic it becomes. Right? Or rather the opposite would be, okay, if you don't need them, it's good to have, not must have, then it will become a luxury good. Okay, then your size of your YED will increase, it will become more income elastic. So far, so good. So you have to be familiar with how these two determinants affect the size of your YED. Size. Okay, and also can potentially affect your magnitude. Right? So with this, okay, I am going to move on to TETR approach. Okay, TETR approach, there's no need to jot down. Okay, I'm just going to extend using the same diagram. So remember, okay, we have gone through the total expenditure, total revenue approach, right? So what we need to do is just to insert the 4 points again. Remember, TETR is always 4 points. Okay, I'm so sorry I did not label this. Okay, so just stick to the color code. Okay, so we can see that when there is a rise in income, okay, what happens to your inferior good? Can you all tell me what is the size of your expenditure for inferior good when there is a rise in household income? Type it out. Okay, good, Jiaming. I want you to type out, okay, the 4 points. Okay, or what happens when there is, what is the 4 points of the expenditure for inferior good? Okay, good. Remember, it's all about 4 points. Okay, we have did this activity some time back. Alright, so Raphael, so does it increase or decrease? So it's type out 2 things. Tell me whether your spending increase or decrease, and type out the 4 points. With a rise in household income. Okay, with a rise in household income, demand will go down. Okay, and when demand goes down, okay, your expenditure is 0, P1, E1, Q1. Initially it was 0, P0, E0, Q0. So all you need to is to reference to the initial black 4 points. With a fall in demand, okay, your expenditure becomes 0, P1, E1, Q1. Okay, so we can see that the initial black 4 points is going to be greater than the green 4 points. Okay, so expenditure is going to go down. Okay, so for spending in your inferior goods is going to go down. So this is the best approach for all expenditure and revenue based questions. What about necessity? Can you all tell me when income goes up? Okay, 2 questions, type it out. What is going to happen to your expenditure and what are the 4 points again? Type it out now. Necessity. 4 points. Okay, Jiaming, you got the first part right. What about the 4 points? Okay, great. Good, Raphael. So remember, we all start from 0, P0, E0, Q0. Okay, so when there's a rise in household income, okay, demand is going to shift to the right. That's what we have seen in the diagram, right? So now, okay, what is the final expenditure as a result of an increase in household income? We see that your expenditure will be 0, P2, E2, and Q2, right? Okay, 0, P2, E2, and Q2, and it's going to be bigger than 0, P0, E0, and Q0. So expenditure will go up. Okay, likewise, for luxury good, we can use the same deduction. Okay, your expenditure will be 0, P3, E3, Q3. Okay, it's going to be greater than the initial, P0, P0, E0, Q0. And it's also going to be bigger than the one in red, 0, P2, E2, Q2. Okay, so your expenditure increases more, okay, when there's a rise in household income. Same approach can be used for revenue. So this is going to be a very handy approach, especially when you handle essay questions. Okay, you will encounter such essay questions very soon. Okay? And once you mastered TE and TR, later on you realize that XED is the same. Okay, so we can use the same diagram. But you need to get past this first, because the diagram illustration is the same. Alright, okay, I'm going to move on to non-pricing strategies. So one way to test earlier on was total expenditure, total revenue approach. Okay, I've shown it in the diagram. Another way is determinants of YED. Okay, they will ask you what are the determinants of YED. You're supposed to use the 2 factors that I've mentioned, level of income and nature of the good. Now, non-pricing strategies, okay, is a very widely tested concept, especially popular in first years. Okay, so you're supposed to take up, okay, the perspective of a firm, and you're supposed to make deduction, okay, of how a firm is going to maximize revenue. Remember, when we are looking at elasticities of demand, we can only maximize revenue. We cannot maximize profit. Okay, because when we move on to firms and decision, we realize that another missing equation is cost. Okay, we haven't learned cost yet. We only learned demand yet. Okay, so for now, okay, let's look at the demand side. So YED is often known as a non-pricing strategy. Unlike PED, remember PED, I've mentioned that PED is a pricing strategy, right? If your good is price demand inelastic, what should we do? Type it out. Recap. This will be tested later. When a good is price demand inelastic. Okay, Jiaming good. How about the rest? Type it out. DY, Yuki, Raphael. Good. When a good is price demand inelastic, when demand curve is sufficiently steep, okay, what should a firm do to maximize revenue? For those who find it difficult to answer, you got to recap on your PED and PES. Yeah, so it probably means that you missed that out. Okay, so it simply means that you should increase your price. I've covered these last couple of weeks back. Okay, under PED. So for those who find it hard, okay, I believe I covered this under PED2. Okay, lesson 5, I believe. Okay, effects. Is it lesson 5? Let me take a look. A pricing strategy. Yep. Lesson 4. Pricing strategy. You see this? This is what we did. Yeah? Okay, so this is the exact slide that you need to recap on. For those who could not answer this, recap on this, very important. Okay, if not later on your essay will flop. Alright? Okay, so for non-pricing strategies, YED is normally known as a non-pricing strategy, or how we utilize YED, because we realize that okay, we have no control over price. We are not going to change prices. So what can we do here? Okay, so there are a few options that a producer can do. So for instance, okay, when the scenario given, okay, was an increase in income, okay, when there's an increase in household income or increase in there's economic boom. Right? So a producer will have different approaches. So what can a producer do to maximize revenue? Okay, so what they can do is they can step up production in their luxury good. Okay, please copy this down. It's not in the book. Okay, so it's going to tie in nicely with what we have covered earlier on. Remember? Okay, when there is an increase in household income, okay, you want to shift the demand curve significantly more to the right. Okay, and therefore, okay, people are going to consume more luxury good when there's an economic boom. And you want to produce more luxury good. So to capture a higher total revenue. Okay, from 0P0E0Q0 to 0P3E3Q3. So this is just one way to illustrate a non-pricing strategy. Alright, so make a product more upmarket. What does it mean? Okay, it means that you want to show a better variation or a better version of a product. Right? So any examples out here that you have that makes a product more upmarket or perceived to be a luxury good? Offhand, I don't have. Okay, could be limited editions. Okay, you can launch limited editions of a good, okay, to make it more upmarket. Anyone else? It's the same good, okay, but marketing of a product to make it more luxurious. Okay, so changing of a consumer perception, right? Sure. So with this, okay, I'm going to move on to the last part, targeting different income groups. Okay, so one of the non-pricing strategy that a firm can adopt is a multi-pronged approach. Okay, meaning a good for everyone. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Okay, so I was actually thinking up and down and I realized that the example is here. Do y'all see this? Right? Anyone who is an iPhone user here? iPhone user, right? I'm not an iPhone user, but I believe if you're using iPhone, this would be better for this would speak better to you, right? So we have different variations of a phone. Agreed? So iPhone Pro is likely to be a luxurious good. Okay, so we are going to launch different categories of the group of a good to appeal to different consumers. Remember just now, level of income is a determinant for it's a determinant of YED, right? Okay, so we can play around with this. Okay, so for ordinary households, they probably find that iPhone Pro is a luxury good. Okay, that I produce more of the iPhone Pro. Okay, and to cater to this category of consumers. For normal household or for lower income household, they probably Oh, this is not price discrimination. This is income. Price discrimination is charging different price to different consumers. There is of the condition that's not related to cost. We are not there yet. Okay, we are not even there. Okay, so please don't get confused. Okay, so back to what I have mentioned, for lower income earners, okay, they probably find that iPhone 13 or iPhone SE, I don't understand what is SE. If you know, please type it out. Okay, is probably a luxury good for them. iPhone Pro is probably out of league. Then in that case, we can widen. Okay, we can actually target the lower income earners with iPhone 13, iPhone SE, or even an older model of iPhone 12. So this is what I mean by targeting different consumer segments with different product. Okay, there is one product for everyone. Everyone is a happy winner. Okay, so everyone following me? So this is nothing to do with price. It's about producer strategy, okay, with relation to income changes. Okay? So just on the example I think I use is a very good example already. Yeah. So with this, I'm going to move on to XED. Before I move on to XED or CED, any questions that I can take? This one will come out later. Okay, this one and T and TR will come out later. Like I've said, I'm not sure whether I have time to cover the outline. If I don't have time to cover the outline, I will throw you guys to the pool to swim yourself. Yeah, so Jiaming asks, is this price discrimination? No, it's not price discrimination. Okay, PED is a form of price discrimination, not YED. Yeah. Now I'm going to move on to the next part, XED. XED is one of the concept is fairly similar. Okay, so especially in terms of diagram illustration. Okay, but okay, I'm going to show you how it differs in a short while. So let's look at page 11, everyone. So XED or CED, some of the schools use CED. Okay, we are concerned about the degree of responsiveness of quantity demanded for good A. Quantity, so I want you all to focus. There are two alphabets here. Okay, quantity demanded for good A with changes in price of good B. Two goods. So, okay, don't get confused between PED. I'm just going to tilt this. For PED, we are looking at changes in price of its own. Whereas for XED, we are looking at the relationship of two goods, not changes in price of its own. Okay? Some of the schools also use demand here. Instead of quantity demanded, okay, they use demand. Okay, so check with your school notes. Okay, so the formula that we'll be looking at is what happens when there's a change in price of good B. Okay, not your own good. How does it affect the quantity demanded or the demand for good A, ceteris paribus? I believe I forgot to illustrate why is it quantity demanded and demand. Okay, why are these two used interchangeably? Okay, so I forgot to illustrate that earlier on. Okay, and this concept I'll be illustrating later on. So I just address this right now. Okay, so the long story short is we are concerned about the effects of a change in demand, right? And why is quantity demanded also accepted? Okay, because you realize that okay, there will be corresponding changes in your equilibrium quantity. Okay, the size of increasing of your demand will match with exact size of the increase in your quantity. Okay, so these two are accepted. Okay, they are used interchangeably, but stick to your school. Now, I'm going to move on to the size and signs of XED or CED for some of the schools. Okay, I'm going to derive with you all together. Here. Okay, XED. Okay, these are the three signs. Okay, so first of all, okay, let us quickly plan this out. So some of the students, they get confused of the sign. They don't know whether is it positive or negative. Okay, so I'm going to derive with you all together. Okay, we are concerned about the percentage change in price of good A with response to percentage change in demand or quantity demanded for good B. Ceteris paribus. Right? And as usual, there are going to be three signs. Okay, XED equals to 0, XED smaller than 0, and XED greater than 0. Okay, I'll probably swap these because I need more space. And then just keep it here. Okay, I hope mine. Oops. I think OneNote doesn't like what I'm writing. They decide to close on me. Greater than 0. Okay, let's not play around with the signs. Let's start with the easiest one. What does equals to 0 means? It means that no matter how your price changes, let's consider this. When it goes up by 1%, there will be no change in demand for good B, right? So when there's an increase in the denominator but no change in the numerator, it will equate to 0. So what does it tell us? It tells us that these two are unrelated goods. Easy enough? Okay, so no matter how a change in price of good A will not affect the demand for good B. Now, I'm going to move on, okay, to complements and substitute. Okay, so in order to find out the sign, okay, what I normally advocate students to do if they totally forget the sign is to what? Okay, is to use examples. So now let's start with substitutes. Then you can derive complements yourself. Okay, what is a pair of substitute? Coke and Pepsi. Okay, good. So for instance, okay, when there's a rise in price of Coke by 1%, how can we deduce the XED of Pepsi here? Okay, let's go step by step. When there's a rise in price of Coke, this will lead to fall in quantity demanded for Coke, right? This is a price factor. And for consumers who find Coke too expensive, they will substitute away to Pepsi. Okay, so demand for Pepsi is going to go up or down? Up or down? Quickly type out up or down? Up. So you realize that they go in the same direction, right? Yes? So XED for substitutes must be positive. So this is how you derive step by step. It has to be positive, and complements will have to be negative. I don't think I need to derive complements, right? You guys can work it out yourself. Okay, so this is how you want to play around with this. Now, okay, there's something not in the book that I want you all to copy this. Can we further work out on greater than 0? Can we play around with this sign? Okay, are there different ranges that you can cover? So you see that it's greater than 0, right? So we are likely to have these two range. Between 0 to 1, greater than 1. So what does these two tell us? We know that it's a substitute, but we are not sure about the strength of the substitute. Right? Okay, so someone mentioned strong or weak substitute. Good. So now between 0 to 1, okay, is it strong or weak? So when there's an increase in price of Coke, this leads to a slight increase in demand for Pepsi. Remember, it's always using example to learn. Slight increase in demand for Pepsi. then this will be a weak substitute. Okay, so if it results in a more than proportional increase in your demand, strong substitute. We can use the same for complements. It's the same, exactly the same approach. And just that complements is a little bit funny because it goes into the negative range. Okay, so the signs that you see is going to be a little bit weird like this. Something like that. But most of the time they play around with substitutes more. Huh? I'm not sure whether I even get the sign right. Is it the other way around? Can you all advise? Is it like that? Should be lah, huh? It's smaller than. It should be like that. Should be like that. Greater than, yeah. Should be like that. Alright, okay, I'm going to move on. Okay, the signs are not important. Okay, all these are not important. The concept behind that is more important. Okay, so how is your demand curve going to shift more or shift left to the right? So from a diagram perspective, there's a lot. Okay, I'm not going to draw that much. Okay, probably I'll just simplify. Okay, I'm going to simplify into one diagram. I'm so sorry. I did not plan for this, but yeah, quantity. Okay, let me extend this a little bit more. Strange. Let's work with a small diagram then. Yeah, okay for a small diagram? Just follow me, huh? Forget it. Let's use a big diagram. It's not that Mr. Teo is so yeah, it's just that, you know, this especially this diagram needs a lot of drawing, needs a lot of tender loving care. Hey, let's draw a big diagram for this. I'm so sorry for being so fickle-minded. Okay, today I cannot decide a lot of things. I let God decide. Hey, join me in drawing. Very important. Okay, so supply and demand. Price and quantity. So now I'm just going to paint out the scenario. Okay, so when there is a rise in price of good B, now we want to uncover whether they are substitutes or complement. Right? So if they are substitutes, what is going to happen to demand for good A? So this is market for good A. If they are substitutes, demand will shift right or shift left? Come on, quickly. This is demand for good A. We're not concerned about price. We're not concerned about market for good B. Okay, KM good. So just now we uncovered, right? When there's an increase in price of good B. Just now I flip around, whatever A or B doesn't really matter. Yeah. There's an increase in price of good B. Okay, your demand is going to shift to D. There will be a fall in quantity demanded for good B, right? And there's going to be a substitution effect and rise in demand for good A. Okay, so for those who didn't get this right, please make a mental note. Okay, so this is what we call demand of substitutes. It's going to go up, okay, with a rise in price of good B. What happens if it's a weak substitute? Will the increase in demand, will it lead to an increase in demand to the right hand side of the blue demand curve or the left hand side of the blue curve? We know that demand is going to go up, but okay, good KM. What about the rest? So my question is, what if this is a weak substitute? Okay, will the increase in demand leads to a the position of demand curve being on the right hand side of the blue or left hand side of the blue? Okay, good. Very good, everyone. Well done. Congrats. Okay, demand of weak substitutes. Okay, I'm not going to show the complement. Okay, I'm not going to insult all your intelligence. When there's a rise of price of good B, okay, then demand for complement is going to fall. Okay, and it's going to follow this exact same principle. Okay, the extent of falling is going to depend whether they are a strong complement or a weak complement. Clear? This is exactly the same. So all you need to is to look out for the size of the arrow. Okay, and if it's a complement good, okay, the direction of the arrow also matters. When the rise in price, okay, demand for the good goes in the same direction, substitute. If they go in the opposing direction, complements. Okay? And how much do they move in the opposing direction depends on the strength of your complements. Now I'm going to move on to determinants of XED. Good news is we may be able to build an outline. I'm not sure. Let's see how it goes. For the practice question, I'm really concerned whether, because I don't normally like to do essay questions especially I cover content, because both of them are very equally heavy. Yeah, so I just want to make sure that okay, sure. Hey, sorry for digressing. Determinants, cool. So now let's look here. Okay, so there are two factors that affect your degree of your determinants of your XED, or size of your XED. Degree of differentiation, okay, normally relates to substitutes. Okay, degree of necessity of joint consumption depends on complements. And these two comes relatively intuitive. So for instance, okay, degree of necessity of joint consumption, right? Can you all name me a pair of weak complements? I want weak. What does weak complements tells us? Okay, it tells us that you may or may not use them joined together. It's good to have to be used jointly, but not necessarily need to, right? So what is an example? I don't want strong. Okay, probably phone and headphones. Okay, because the phone comes with an internal speaker itself, right? Okay, you don't necessarily need a headphone. Okay, so headphone, it is a weak complement. Okay, I was about to use the example of Mac and Apple mouse. Apple mouse is a very weak complement, right? There's only one button, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, I don't really like that mouse. Yeah, I like my standard Razer mouse. Okay, so weak complements. Okay, and the example that I use in the book is strong complements like SIM card and phone. These two comes very strongly. Okay, so this will affect the size, right? So if they are strong complements, it will be more negative than 1. If they are weak complements, they'll be between 0 to -1, something like that. Okay, likewise for substitutes, you can use the same approach. Okay, name me a pair of weak substitutes. If we deem Coke and Pepsi as strong substitute, okay, what is weak substitutes to you? So it's important to conceptualize before we can deduce the effect. Okay, on maybe Coke and iced lemon tea. One is gassy, one is not gassy, right? iPhone and Nokia phone. Oh yeah, okay. They serve the same purpose, but they have very different features. Then in that case, okay, a rise in price of one of the good, okay, is not going to lead to a significant increase in the other. Okay, so this will lead to your XED size to be smaller, lesser, between 0 to 1 if they are weak. If they are strong, it will be greater than 1. Okay, depends on how strong they are of a substitute. So far so good, everyone? Wait 1 second. Okay, so I am going to move on to the TETR approach. The TETR approach will be tested later. Total expenditure and total revenue. It goes back to the 4 points again. See? Everything comes back to Rome. All roads lead to Rome. E1 and E2. So with an increase in price, we are concerned about the extent of your... First of all, we are concerned about the expenditure or the revenue, whether it goes up or goes down. And next, we are concerned about the extent of your expenditure going up or down. So first thing, okay, when there's an increase in price, let's look at substitute. Okay, when there's an increase in price of good B, okay, we understood that demand of good A is going to go up, right? And if it's a weak substitute, it will rise to the green demand curve. It's a strong substitute, blue demand curve, right? So the increase in your expenditure is going to differ. We all start from the initial 0, P0, E0, Q0. Okay, so when there's an increase in price of good B, okay, the increase in your expenditure for weak substitute will be lesser than strong substitute based on the 4-point approach. Likewise, okay, if it's a complement good, an increase in price of good B will lead to a fall in expenditure of good A. Okay, the extent of the demand curve shifting will be something like this. Okay, demand of weak complements, demand of strong complements. You can use the same 4 points. So I'm just imparting you a concept. Okay, you have to play around with that. So the concept here is expenditure is about the 4 points. So it layers on what you have learned earlier on about the direction of your demand curve and the size of your demand curve shifting. Okay, before you can move on to the 4 points. So very, very important. You have to know what the concept is being tested. All right, okay, I'm going to move on to the strategies for XED. Okay, so XED, okay, there are 2 different approaches. Okay, we can broadly categorize them as pricing strategy and non-pricing strategy. So what is an example of this? So earlier on, we identified that, okay, there is Coke and Pepsi, right? So when there is, let's deduce this. This one, please jot down, it's not in the book. So if let's say Pepsi, okay, reduces its own price of Pepsi goes down. Okay, what is going to happen to demand for Pepsi? Demand for Coke, sorry. If you are a Coke producer, okay, what is going to happen to demand for Coke? Okay, demand for Coke is going to go down, and we can deduce that total expenditure is going to go down, or total revenue is going to go down. Okay, so when we move on to firms and decision, okay, we will be learning under the concept of oligopoly. Okay, then we can actually see that, okay, for certain firms, when they experience a rivalrous fall in price or a price war, okay, they will have to respond with a price cut as well. Okay, so this is what we call a price war. So the response will be a fall in price. Okay, so in order to defend your own market share as a Pepsi or as Coke, okay, you need to reduce price of Coke as well. So it's about perspective. Okay, you have no control over Pepsi price because you're a Coke producer. Okay, and in order to defend your own market share, you have to reduce price of your Coke. Okay, and there are a lot more assumptions like King demand curve and all this. Okay, we are there. Okay, we'll cover this in due time. Okay, it's not a time for today. So at the surface level, okay, a producer can respond, okay, to a fall in price by matching the price cut. Okay, if there are strong substitutes. Okay, so the easier ones comes with the non-pricing strategy. Okay, so for instance, I'm going to use this product differentiation. Okay, so we know that if there's a fall in price of Pepsi, this will lead to a fall in demand for Coke. And if demand for Coke is more than 1, it means that it's strong substitute, right? Yes? This is the assumption. So your total expenditure or total revenue will fall a lot more. Agreed? When there's a fall in price of Pepsi, demand goes down and it's going to fall a lot more. So for a Coke producer, okay, we are focused on this. How can we weaken the size of this? So if you are a strong substitute, okay, you'll probably want to differentiate your good, okay, and make it weaker such that XED is between 0 to 1. Okay, or what I call a weak substitute. And the extent of your total revenue falling is lesser. So what can we do to differentiate? Okay, we can probably release what? Okay, the new Coke. Okay, differentiate your product. So this is non-price. We are not talking about matching price cards. Okay, we are talking about weakening, okay, your XED. So that you are more insulated. The correct word is more protected or insulated against price cuts of your rival. So the greater you can shrink your XED, the lesser your demand curve will be affected by rivals' price cuts. Then you're going to protect your total revenue. Is everyone clear? So you're often required to do this scenario analogy. Okay, another one is what we call, okay, joint promotion or bundling. Okay, this is for compliments. Okay, you often see this being used. Okay, so when you go to movie, they will like to bundle goods together, right? Okay, you buy movie ticket together with popcorn. Okay, you are going to what? Okay, they are going to charge you an overall cheaper price. Okay, so what they do is, okay, because these two are they are complementary goods. Okay, when they bundle up, okay, they'll probably lower price of one of the good, and this will lead to a increase in demand for the other good. Okay, so complements is widely used. Okay, as the correct term is called bundling. I think I mentioned that, but examples are in movie tickets. Okay, in fact, if you go to fast food restaurant, this is often what you see. If you buy the a la carte burger, it's going to be more costly, right? Okay, but if you buy the set meal, okay, overall, okay, all the prices are added inside. Okay, they're going to offer you a concession. So it's a win-win for the producer. Okay, so instead of the consumer consuming the burger alone, okay, now they offer a slight concession on the drinks and the fries. They are going to increase their total revenue nonetheless as a whole. So pay attention to this. Okay, so especially for compliments, this is the only way out. Bundling. Any other examples of bundles that we see in our day-to-day life that offer you together? Okay, do notice that, okay, for examples, okay, bubble tea and straw is not a bundle. Bubble tea and straws are not a bundle. It's not used like that. But any other examples that you can relate to in your day-to-day life of bundling? When things are offered to you together, okay, and it's like on pencil and eraser at Popular. Are they sold together? I don't know. I haven't been to Popular for a long time. I've been ordering a lot of things on Lazada that I haven't like too much junk. Yeah. But yeah, okay, possibly. Okay, they can bundle that together. Alright, okay, I'm going to move on to the last part of limitations of all your elasticities of demand of your demand curve. PED, YED, and XED. Okay, these three will be tested later. Okay, so these three are not in the book. Please copy down. So what are some of the limitations for these three elasticities? Number one, ceteris paribus would not hold. Ceteris paribus means that we isolate everything, keep things the same, okay, and we change one of the variable. All right, so for instance, okay, when there's a rise in household income, okay, we know that for normal good, there's going to be an increase in demand of the good, right? But what happens if there are other factors being present, like taste and preference, like expectation of future prices? Okay, so this is what happens when ceteris paribus does not hold. When there's more than one factor in place, then we cannot isolate the effects on YED. Okay, it's going to be the same for PED and XED. Ceteris paribus not holding. Alright, so for all the three elasticities, PED, YED, and XED, we are all concerned about maximizing revenue. Okay, so please don't use maximize profit because we cannot tell profit without a cost curve. Okay, so this will be covered in depth under firms and decision. Okay, ignores the cost of profit. And information collection is also an issue. So especially for YED, okay, we need to have sensitive info about household income, right? In order to determine what is the value of the YED good. Sometimes people will not be forthcoming. They will not tell you what is their household income. So information collection, okay, may be an issue. Okay, when you construct your PED, YED, or XED. So these are some of the limitations that you often use in essays. So pay attention to that. Okay, so with this, okay, I am going to wrap up. Okay, moving on to the exam purpose. Okay, know the determinants of YED and XED by heart. There are 2 each. It's not difficult. Okay, know TE and TR approach for both YED and XED. Pricing and non-pricing strategies, especially non-pricing strategies. Yeah. Okay, so pricing strategies are normally for PED. Non-pricing strategy, with the exception of matching a price cut from the XED side, okay, the rest will be non-pricing strategy. Right? So with this, I would like you all to go for a real quick break. When you are back, okay, please turn on your webcam. Okay, the faster you are back, okay, the faster we can kickstart. All right, see you guys. For the boys who are back early, you have any questions, please type it out. Okay, I'll take. If not, you can unmute and ask. Thanks.
Mr. Teo, can I ask, like, I was thinking, is phone and mobile data, are they like derived demand or complementary goods?
I'm so sorry, I'm muted. Good question. Okay, what do you think? What's your perception?
I feel it's mostly, it can be both. Then if it's derived, it's because it's like the phone usually having a mobile data is like necessity. But then it also can be like complementary if you're just using Wi-Fi or the
Okay. I explained this before. Okay, derived demand, there is an important criteria. Okay, derived demand, okay, usually is a factor input in place. Factor input, what you use to produce the phone.
Oh, so Mr. Teo, is it like still for cars?
Or probably batteries, right?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr.
Yes.
Teo.
Okay, so the correct approach would be complements. Okay, in fact, there are strong complements. You don't necessarily need mobile data, right? when I'm away in for the next 2 weeks, I don't even know whether I have mobile data, but I still gonna survive. Okay,
Okay,
so
thank you, Mr. Teo.
Okay, so thanks for asking. Let me know when you're back, DY. If not, we're gonna kickstart. Okay, so this is the practice question that we will be doing. Okay, and because of time constraint, I don't think I have time to show. Okay, but anyway, you open up. I forgot to open up earlier on. Where is it? It's a question on the magazine producers. Are y'all seeing that same one? So uncharacteristic of me to forget. Yes. Alright, so I'm going to give you all a really brief outline for this. Okay, I do know that this may be one of the first few essays that you are going to do, especially for my first year students. Okay, so please follow my outline. Okay, assess the relevance of various elasticities to a magazine publisher. So the context is magazine publisher. Make sure you are able to uncover the perspective with respect to magazine publisher. I don't want bubble tea. I don't want a normal firm. Okay, I want deep contextualized examples with respect to magazine publisher. Next, the question requires you the relevance of various of elasticity of demand. So we have to go back to the magazine publisher. What is the magazine publisher concerned about? Okay, they are likely to be concerned about revenue maximization, right? Okay, if you have learned firms and decision, then you want to, or profit maximization. Selling magazines for profit is correct, okay, but profit maximization, okay, is the correct term to illustrate what's the rationale for producers. Okay, so I'm going to cut you all some slack. You can use profit maximization if you have learned firms and decision. If not, you can use revenue maximization. Okay, profit has to take into consideration of costs. Okay, revenue don't need. Right, so this is how I will start. Okay, and what are the various elasticities of demand that we have covered so far? Can you type out quickly? Earlier on, we have learned what are the elasticities of demand. Okay, there are three: PED, YED, and XED. So you have to define all three of this. So point 1, PED. Point 2, YED. Point 3, XED. Right, so for PED, okay, and this secondary concept that is tested here is how do we play around with PED? Right, so PED is a pricing strategy. So depending on the nature of the magazine that you are producing, you are going to propose, okay, what are the revenue or what are the pricing strategies that you have for the firm, for magazine publishers. Okay, so just now I covered this concept. I briefly covered this concept. Okay, so this is going to come in totality together with YED and XED. Okay, so if the good is price elastic, what should you do? If the good is price inelastic, what should you do? Okay, and you cannot afford to use the good. You have to go in depth. And you have to show me, okay, the increase in total revenue. So the whole idea is to show increase in total revenue. So you need the PED and pricing framework here. Okay, YED I covered earlier on, non-pricing strategies. So what are the non-pricing strategies that the firm can adopt to increase total revenue? I've given you 3 earlier on. Remember, I don't want you all to factor spam. I want you all to pick one point to expand it like a balloon. Right? You only have one. If you want a big balloon, you focus on one balloon, right? Okay, but if you focus on 3 balloons, then you realize that all your balloons are very small. Okay, not sizable. So pick one. Is it increase your current production? Is it targeting different market segment? Up to you. Okay, XED, likewise, you can pick either a pricing or non-pricing strategy to maximize your total revenue. So all these 3 approach requires a diagram. Okay, I would like to see diagram. I would like to see how we relate to total revenue. And I would like to see, for students who are conceptually stronger, okay, work on a synthesis. Overall, okay, which of these do you think is more important or less important? Okay, or are there any limitations, okay, that is going to inhibit or weaken the discussion of the elasticities here? Okay, so for my stronger students, I hope you can build the 3 points with a synthesis. For my ordinary students, okay, you will want to try to build depth for all these 3. Remember, I want you to focus on depth, okay, not scope. And for my weaker students, you can pick any of the 2. Okay, if you really run out of time, it's always better to focus on 2 than 3 half-baked products. Right? Focus in blowing 2 big balloons than 3 small balloons. Clear? So with that, okay, I've given you a proper outline. Okay, so your time is 10:23. I'm going to give you 28 minutes to write this out. Okay, so no hints will be provided. If you like, you can do it open book. Can? Good luck. All the best. See you all in 28 minutes time. Alright, time's up. Stop writing. Thank you. I would like you all to maintain eye contact and we will finish up strong with the corrections part. So if you have your green pen, we'll take corrections. And I have already uploaded the answer key on the LMS itself. So your submission timing is 11:30. Okay, corrections to be done and assignments to be submitted by 11:30. Anything later than 11:30 will be awarded 0 and won't be marked. Clear, everyone? Yeah. Okay, so with that, okay, let's quickly run through what is expected of the script. So for the viewers out there, earlier on I have provided an outline. Okay, so if you are watching this, okay, make sure you have adhered to what we have discussed in the outline. And if you deviate, probably you've got to have a good reasoning why you deviate from that. Right? So with this, okay, let's start off with the introduction paragraph. So you will probably want to kickstart with all the elasticity. So it's a very huge chunk here. So I'm going to leave it to you. Okay, if you are short in time, you can skip this. It's optional. It's good to have, but it's optional. Or you can include the respective elasticities definition in the body paragraph. Okay, so let me repeat. Okay, if you are a slow writer, you can possibly skip this. You can make it up in your body paragraph or body writing, or you can include all of this, okay, in your body paragraph. Oh yes, something that I probably could have done better. I would like to include this. This is important. Okay, I forgot to include this. It's in my outline. You want to illustrate the rationale or what does the producer aims to maximize. Okay, so producer would either want to maximize profit or revenue. In this case, revenue also can. Okay, they're not going to be that stringent. Okay, you got to state. Okay, how does a self-motivated or self-interest producers, what would they do? All right. Okay, the first part is about PED. Okay, so make sure you tell me PED, the elasticity of the price elasticity of magazines. So I'm not really concerned about, okay, is elastic or inelastic. I'm more concerned about you making a choice. You have to tell me, okay, why is magazine price elastic or price inelastic? So the concept, there are two concepts tested here. Number one, determinants. You need to tell me why which determinant are you going to select to justify the PED of magazines. Okay, so the one that I've chosen was PANT. Okay, I believe was availability of substitutes. Okay, you have to look at your texture of your example. Okay, so the example used here was Times, Newsweek, Economies, whatever. Well, there are a lot of close substitutes. Okay, and therefore, when you determine that your good is price elastic because there are a lot of close substitute, you should lower price. So the second condition, or the second concept that is tested here on top of the determinants of PANT would be pricing strategy. Okay, so you want to lower price. This is a very key term that you want to illustrate. Lowering price would result in when you reduce price from P0 to P1, your quantity demanded will increase more than proportionate. Okay, so you want to either use the 4 points or you can use the rectangle illustration that I have covered previously to illustrate the gains in revenue. Very, very important to illustrate this bolded key phrase. What happens when you lower price? Your quantity demanded will increase more than proportion or less than proportion. If you justify magazines as price inelastic in demand, you got to justify with a proper PANT factor, and you got to suggest a raise in price in order to maximize revenue. Okay, so two concepts tested here: determinants of PED and pricing strategy. Clear? So don't factor spam. Don't tell me if magazine is price elastic, this is what I will do. If magazine is price inelastic, this is what I'm going to do. Then you're going to suffer in the dilution in your illustration. Okay, a quick limitation. Okay, you can see that lowering prices of your magazine is going to start a price war. Okay, so this concept is related to firms and decision. If you don't know how to use, you can skip this for now. So the concept here is price war. Okay, under oligopolistic market structure. So the whole idea is if other competitors lower price, okay, then you're going to start a price war where everyone is going to lose. Then you may not necessarily maximize revenue. All right? Any questions, type it out, I will address. If not, you can stash these under the synthesis, also can. YED. So for YED, we are concerned about non-pricing strategy. You can use any of the three that I've proposed earlier on. So for instance, okay, if you are producing supercars, if you are a magazine that publishes supercars, collective watches, right? I'm not sure whether you are into watches. Okay, TWC, IWC, I think is a very is a very upscale watch. Okay, if you are producing magazines of this, okay, you probably want to publish or increase your publication in countries with rapid rise in income. Okay, so this is consistent with what we have covered earlier on. Okay, under here, increase your current production. Okay, in a specific country, okay, that is experiencing a economic boom. So this will lead to a more than proportional increase in your demand curve, and you can see there's a gain in your producer revenue. So key concepts that's tested here: number one, non-pricing strategy, and number two, effects on the demand and total revenue curve, and your total revenue, your area of your total revenue. Okay, so you can either use the 4 points E0, P0, E0, Q0 to 0, P1, E1, Q1, or you can use the shaded area. Okay, this is if you understand what you are drawing. Yeah. Okay, a quick limitation on YED. Okay, this limitation is actually obtainable from what we have seen here. Okay, information collection. Okay, so what inhibits the effectiveness of YED to magazine publishers is magazine publishers may not have access to data of personal or household income. Therefore, they may not be able to correctly deduce what is the YED value. Okay, and they are not able to propose correct strategies. If not, this can also be part of the synthesis. So I'm showing you different ways to write an essay. Okay, so when you critique early, okay, you can score the evaluation brownie points. Okay, but on the flip side, okay, if you're a slow writer, then you will possibly compromise on your body paragraph. You may not be able to finish your third point. So if you finish your 3 points, then you build a synthesis. Okay, your quantity of your synthesis may be compromised because you're going to do it at the last. Okay, so depending on different writing style, okay, you may want to consider bringing your evaluation earlier, okay, or putting it right at the back. Is that clear, everyone? Okay, especially for the stronger writers, okay, I think you should write it at the back. Okay, XED. Okay, XED, I'm going to show you two different approaches. You can choose one of them. You no need to write both. Okay, so if you identify a magazine publisher to have complementary books, complementary goods like ebook readers, like Kobo, right? Are you familiar with Kobo? My wife recently bought a Kobo reader. Okay, it's something like a tablet, but it's only to read books. Okay, they are used jointly to read digital publications. Then the XED is likely to be strong and XED value is likely to be negative and greater than 1. Okay, they are strong complements. Therefore, okay, the magazine publisher could arrange with a joint promotion, okay, to bundle up these two goods and sell them jointly. Okay, so this is the concept that we are tested. Non-pricing strategy. See, joint promotion. Right, so the magazine publisher could have find iPad or could have find Kobo and say that, look, can we jointly release the product together? Okay, maybe you offer a slight concession on your end, okay, and then we can bundle these two goods up together, okay, and then we can increase our total revenue together. Okay, so this is the this is the approach for complements. You can use the same diagram as what you've seen in the luxury magazine. You can use back the same diagram. There's no need to redraw one. Okay, and you can stop here. If you have used substitutes, okay, this is how you approach substitutes. Okay, so the magazine publisher will need to identify strong substitutes or competitors. Okay, so if you identify that someone else is a very strong substitute and you are susceptible to a price war, remember just how I mentioned when there's a fall in price, when the other starts a price war, it will result in a fall in demand of your good. Then you will want to inhibit, okay, or to limit the damage that's done. How can you do so? Differentiation, product differentiation. I've stated this earlier on. Here. Product differentiation. So the whole idea is to weaken, okay, your XED such that it becomes between 0 to 1. Okay, how are we going to do so? So this is, remember, okay, the concept that is tested here is size of XED. Okay, what are we going to do to weaken the size of the XED? So the context is important from the perspective of a magazine. You possibly want to publish exclusive content. Okay, you have scoops, okay, that are not available to other publishers. Then in that case, this will weaken your magnitude or the degree of substitutability. And you are going to be less susceptible to a price war and a steep fall in demand. So the illustration is here. If your good is undifferentiated, a price war will lead to a fall in demand, okay, from DD0 all the way to DD undifferentiated. Okay, and you realize that your fall in your revenue will be exceptionally huge. If you are able to differentiate, then your demand curve will fall to a lesser extent. And the effects on your revenue will also fall lesser. So the whole idea is differentiation will result in an insulation effect, okay, for the existing producer, and they will be less affected in their total revenue. So this is the key concept tested. Yeah, so you want to show the effects on your total revenue. A lower fall in your total revenue, especially when you are already differentiated. Okay, then it will become a weak substitute. When you differentiate, you become a weak substitute, then you'll fall lesser. Is everyone clear so far? It's all consistent with our 4 points that we have did earlier on. That's why I keep emphasizing know the 4 points and know the direction of the shift. So for XED, you can choose either of these. You don't need both. Okay, a quick evaluation. Okay, you can talk about ceteris paribus not holding. Okay, what happens when there is a fall in price of your competitor goods together with changes in income? Remember, if there are multiple demand factors coming in, we cannot isolate the effects, okay, of XED. Okay, the whole idea is to isolate, okay, and to zoom into specific one factor determinant. Okay, so overall, you can see that XED is likely to be the most meaningful because it shows two contrasting relationships, right? Both substitute and complement. Okay, and it's going to be more realistic for the producers to formulate, okay, strategies, pricing and non-pricing, okay, because of this dynamic relationship. If not, all the evaluation points can come in as a synthesis. I also accept. Yeah, okay, so I've already gone through how you should build a synthesis. You can bring it way up front at the end of your body paragraph, or you can put it right at the back, depending on the style of writing. So, okay, I'm going to quickly wrap up. Okay, Marcus report If you identify magazine as price demand inelastic, you're also accepted. You need to state the determinant. You need to use good examples, and you need to illustrate a raise in price and the effects on total revenue. Okay, so this is an application question. You need to adopt a strict perspective of magazine publisher. If you realize the examples that you raised was firms, producer, then you're not contextualizing. You'll be penalized on your application skill. Okay, so you need all three elasticities of demand, and PES is not required. Some of the students were too clever bringing PES, no need. Okay, so the rest you can read up on yourself. So with this, okay, I'm going to sign off. If you have any questions for me, okay, for my existing students, stay back and ask me. Okay, for the viewers out there who doesn't have a direct access to me, you can drop a comment, okay, or you can, if you have my number, you can WhatsApp me. Okay, if not, okay, I'm going to sign off.